I stared at my reflection in the full-length mirror, hardly recognizing the woman who stared back. The stylist at Elegant Occasions had worked miracles with my silver hair, sweeping it into a sophisticated updo with tiny pearl pins that matched my dress. The champagne-colored silk fell gracefully over my curves, hiding the parts of my body that had softened with age. At 63, I wasn't trying to look 40, just the best version of myself for my only son's wedding. My phone buzzed on the vanity. Another text from Michael. Mom, photographer wants to do family shots at 3. Just immediate family. I frowned, typing back. I'll be ready. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Actually, Vanessa's mom is organizing this part. She's thinking parents under 40 for the main album. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of casual shots later. My fingers froze over the screen. Parents under 40? I reread the message, feeling a sudden hollowness in my chest. Michael was 32. I'd had him when I was 31. Basic math made me 63, definitely not under 40. But neither was Vanessa's father, who had to be at least 55. I set the phone down without replying and took another look in the mirror. The woman, looking back, had lines around her eyes, laugh lines, I'd always called them. Evidence of a life well lived. I'd earned every one of those lines raising Michael after his father left when he was 8, working 2 jobs sometimes, attending every baseball game, nursing him through mono his junior year, helping him apply to colleges, lending him money for his first apartment security deposit. And now I was too old to be in my own son's wedding photos. The knock at my hotel room door startled me. I quickly dabbed at my eyes with a tissue, careful not to smudge my makeup, and opened the door to find my sister, Jane. Well, don't you look stunning, she said, sweeping into the room in a flurry of floral perfume and burgundy chiffon. At 58, Jane was 5 years younger than me, but people often mistook us for twins. Are you ready to go? The shuttle leaves in 15 minutes. I turned away, busying myself with my earrings. Just need to finish up. Jane's reflection appeared beside mine in the mirror. What's wrong? And don't say nothing. I've known you since you were pushing dolls around in a carriage. I showed her the text. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to outrage in the span of 5 seconds. Parents under 40? That's ridiculous. Michael is 32 years old. That would mean that his parents had him when they were, at most, 8 years old. I laughed, but it came out hollow. I think it's Vanessa's mother's way of saying she doesn't want me in the pictures. Diane Hammond has always been a piece of work. Remember when she organized that charity gala and seated all the divorcees in the back corner? Jane shook her head. But Michael agreed to this? I turned away from the mirror, unable to look at myself anymore. Apparently. What are you going to do? What could I do? Make a scene at my son's wedding? Demand to be included? Embarrass Michael on what was supposed to be the happiest day of his life? I'm going to be the bigger person, I said, reaching for my clutch purse. I'm going to smile and congratulate the happy couple and dance with my grandson and pretend I don't know I've been sidelined. Jane looked unconvinced. Caroline. It's fine, I said firmly, even as my heart twisted in my chest. Really. The shuttle ride to the Rosewood estate was mercifully short. As we pulled up the long, tree-lined drive, I tried to focus on the beauty of the venue's sprawling green lawns, the century-old oak trees draped with twinkling lights, the elegant white pavilion where the ceremony would take place. I'd written a check for $20,000 to help pay for this wedding. Not that I was keeping score. Actually, who was I kidding? Right now, I was definitely keeping score. Jane squeezed my hand as we followed the other guests toward the pavilion. Remember, shoulders back. You look gorgeous. Don't let them see you sweat. I nodded, straightening my posture and lifting my chin. The usher, one of Michael's college friends, whose name I couldn't remember, smiled as he approached. Mother of the groom? He asked. Yes, I replied with what I hoped was a serene smile. Perfect. Right this way, Mrs. Lawson. He led me not to the front row where I expected to sit, but to the third row. Family is being seated in the first few rows, he explained, gesturing to my seat. I looked toward the front where Diane Hammond, resplendent in a designer navy dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension, sat regally in the front row, her husband Thomas beside her. Her perfectly highlighted blonde hair was cut in an angular bob that screamed expensive salon. As if sensing my gaze, she turned slightly, caught my eye, and gave a small, tight smile before turning back to speak to the elegant couple beside her. I slid into my assigned seat, feeling Jane's righteous indignation radiating from beside me. Third row? She hissed. You're the groom's mother! It's fine, I whispered back, though it wasn't. None of this was fine. The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's canon, signaling the start of the ceremony. I watched as Michael appeared from the side with the pastor, looking heartbreakingly handsome in his tuxedo. My boy. My son. My heart swelled with love and pride, momentarily overshadowing the hurt. Then the procession began, bridesmaids in blush pink, groomsmen in classic black. Michael's 5-year-old son from his first marriage, Ethan, came next as the ring-bearer, concentrating so hard on his important job that his little face was scrunched up in determination. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest at the sight of my grandson. And finally, Vanessa appeared on her father's arm. She was undeniably beautiful, with dark hair swept up elegantly, and a lace gown that must have cost a fortune. As they passed my row, Thomas Hammond nodded slightly in my direction, the first acknowledgement I'd received from Vanessa's family all day. The ceremony was lovely, despite everything. Michael's voice cracked with emotion as he recited his vows, and I found myself tearing up, dabbing discreetly at my eyes. Whatever complications existed between us, I wanted nothing but happiness for my son. After the final blessing and the enthusiastic kiss that made the audience chuckle, the newlyweds practically danced back down the aisle, faces glowing with joy. The guests were directed to the cocktail area while the wedding party remained for photos. I lingered uncertainly, watching as the photographer arranged Michael, Vanessa, and her parents for formal shots. My phone buzzed again. We'll do some with you during the reception, Mom. Promise. Enjoy the cocktail hour. I stared at the message, a lump forming in my throat. I'd been dismissed, cast aside, the mother of the groom, relegated to the status of ordinary guest. Come on, Jane said gently, taking my elbow. Let's get a drink, a strong one. I allowed her to lead me toward the bar, passing clusters of guests chatting animatedly. I recognized some of Michael's friends from high school and college, a few distant relatives, and several of my former neighbors who'd watched Michael grow up. Miss Peterson, his third-grade teacher, who'd become a family friend, waved enthusiastically from across the terrace. Caroline, don't you look lovely? She exclaimed, embracing me warmly. At 78, Eleanor Peterson was still a force of nature, her white hair cut in a stylish pixie, and her eyes bright behind fashionable glasses. I was just telling everyone how proud you must be. Michael has grown into such a wonderful young man. Thank you, Eleanor. That means a lot coming from you. I managed a genuine smile. He always said you were his favorite teacher. Well, I don't know about that, but I do know he wouldn't be who he is today without you. She lowered her voice. I heard about Robert showing up. Are you okay? I blinked in surprise. Robert is here? Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Oh dear, you didn't know, I assumed. I saw him near the gift table earlier. I'm sorry, Caroline. I thought surely Michael would have told you. My ex-husband, who had walked out on us 24 years ago, who had missed graduations and birthdays, and every significant moment of Michael's adult life was here at the wedding. And apparently, he'd been invited, while I had been placed in the third row and excluded from family photos. "If you'll excuse me," I murmured, making my way toward the main reception hall. I needed to see for myself. I spotted him immediately. Robert Lawson, still handsome at 65, his once dark hair now salt and pepper, laughing with a group that included Thomas Hammond. He'd aged well, damn him. The confident set of his shoulders, the easy charm as he gestured while telling some story, it was all painfully familiar. And beside him stood a woman who couldn't be more than 40, sleek in a form-fitting emerald dress, her hand possessively on his arm. Wife number 3, 4? I'd lost count. "Caroline." I turned to find Michael behind me, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "You invited your father," I said quietly. He shifted uncomfortably. "I wanted him here." "Of course you did. He's your father." I worked to keep my voice steady. "I just wish you'd told me. I knew you'd make a big deal about it. Like I'm making a big deal about being excluded from your wedding photos." His face flushed. "That's different. Vanessa's mom hired the photographer. She has a specific vision for the album. A vision that doesn't include your actual mother, apparently." "Mom, please, not today." His voice took on the exasperated tone he'd used as a teenager when I'd embarrassed him. "Can't you just be happy for me?" I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, and felt a profound sadness settle over me. "I am happy for you, Michael. I've only ever wanted your happiness." Before he could respond, Diane Hammond appeared at his elbow. "Michael, darling, they're ready for the next set of photos." "Oh, Caroline, hello." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Are you enjoying yourself?" "Immensely," I replied with equal insincerity. "You've organized a beautiful wedding." Yes, well, Vanessa had such a clear vision. So lucky that Thomas and I were able to help make it a reality. The implication being that I couldn't have done the same, despite my financial contribution. "Michael, we really should go. The photographer is on a tight schedule." As they walked away, I heard Diane murmur something about "dramatic as always," and Michael's low response that I couldn't quite make out. Jane appeared at my side with a glass of champagne. "Drink this. Then we're going to find the nearest bathroom so you can tell me what just happened." In the elegant restroom, I leaned against the marble counter and recounted the encounter while Jane listened, her expression growing increasingly outraged. "That woman is a monster," she declared when I'd finished. "And Michael, I love my nephew, but he's being a coward. He just wants peace on his wedding day. I understand that." "Do you? Because I don't. There's a difference between keeping the peace and allowing people to disrespect his mother." Jane ran a hand through her hair in frustration. "Robert gets invited without warning. You get stuck in the third row, and now you're excluded from family photos. It's outrageous." I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Despite everything, I'd held it together. My makeup was intact, my hair still perfectly arranged. I looked every inch the elegant mother of the groom. But inside, I felt hollowed out. "What do you want to do?" Jane asked softly. What did I want? I wanted to be acknowledged. I wanted my role in Michael's life, past, present, and future, to be honored. I wanted my son to stand up for me. But I couldn't force any of those things to happen. "I want to hold my head high," I said finally. "I want to be gracious and dignified, and I want to remember that this day isn't about me." Jane's expression softened. "You're a better person than I am." "No," I corrected her. "I'm just older and more tired. Some battles aren't worth fighting." But as we made our way back to the reception, a small, persistent voice in the back of my mind whispered that maybe some battles were. The reception was in full swing when we returned. Tables elegantly set with fine china and crystal, centerpieces of blush roses and white hydrangeas, a live band playing a sophisticated mix of classics and contemporary music. Under different circumstances, I would have been enchanted by it all. I found my seat at a table near the back of the room, far from the head table where Michael and Vanessa sat with her parents, and my heart sank Robert and his young wife. Jane was seated beside me, along with a few distant relatives and Michael's old basketball coach. Mrs. Lawson? A young server appeared at my elbow. The best man asked me to bring you this. He placed a glass of white wine in front of me. I looked toward the head table where Jake, Michael's best friend since elementary school, raised his own glass slightly in my direction. A gesture of solidarity that brought unexpected tears to my eyes. At least someone remembered I existed. The evening progressed with all the traditional moments first: dance, cake cutting, toasts. Thomas Hammond gave a polished speech about welcoming Michael to the family, carefully avoiding any mention of me or Michael's childhood. The best man's speech was better, with Jake including a few kind words about how I'd been like a second mother to him growing up, always with cookies ready after school and bandages for scraped knees. Then, to my surprise, the DJ announced, "And now Michael has asked his mother to join him for a special dance." All eyes turned to me as Michael approached my table, hand extended. "Mom, may I have this dance?" I placed my hand in his, allowing him to lead me to the dance floor as the opening notes of "What a Wonderful World" filled the air. Louis Armstrong's gravelly voice, the song I'd sung to Michael as a lullaby when he was small. "I know today hasn't gone exactly how you might have hoped," Michael said quietly as we began to move to the music. "It's your wedding day," I replied. "It should be exactly as you and Vanessa want it." He looked uncomfortable. Some things were out of my control. Were they? The question slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes met mine, then slid away. Diane can be difficult, and Vanessa really wants to please her mother. "And what about pleasing you, or respecting me?" Michael sighed. "Mom, can we not do this right now? Everyone's watching." I glanced around, and indeed, many eyes were on us, including Diane's narrowed gaze and Robert's studiedly casual observation. Even little Ethan was watching from where he sat with the babysitter hired to keep the few children at the wedding entertained. "You're right," I conceded. "This isn't the time or place." We finished the dance in silence, and Michael returned me to my table with a dutiful kiss on the cheek before being immediately reclaimed by his new wife. As the night wore on, I watched from my table as Michael and Vanessa moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and posing for countless photos, none of which included me. I watched as Robert charmed the Hammond family, fitting seamlessly into their world of privilege and polish in a way I never could. I watched as Diane directed the event with practiced authority, making sure everything was perfect for her daughter's special day. And I felt increasingly invisible, a footnote in my own son's life story, until Ethan climbed into my lap, his little arms wrapping around my neck. "Grandma, I'm bored," he announced, "and my feet hurt in these shoes." I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd managed in hours. "Well, we can't have that. Would you like to go outside for a little adventure?" He nodded eagerly, and I took his hand, leading him out to the venue's beautiful gardens, now lit with thousands of twinkling lights. Away from the music and chatter, the evening air was cool and sweet with the scent of roses. "Look, Grandma!" Ethan pointed excitedly to a small stone footbridge arching over a decorative pond. "Can we go there?" "Of course, sweetheart." Hand in hand, we crossed the bridge, stopping in the middle to look at the reflection of the stars in the still water below. Ethan leaned against me, his small body warm against my side. "Grandma," he said thoughtfully, "when I get married, will you be in all my pictures?" My heart contracted painfully. "Would you want me to be?" "Uh-huh," He nodded solemnly. Dad said you're not in his pictures, 'cause you're too old. But I think that's silly. You're not too old. You're just right. Out of the mouths of babes, I blinked back tears. Thank you, Ethan. That's very kind of you to say. It's not kind, it's true. He insisted with the absolute certainty only a 5-year-old could muster. And when I get married, I want you to stand right next to me, not in the back or anything. I hugged him close, breathing in the sweet scent of his hair. This child, this precious boy who saw me real, saw me when so many others looked past me. In that moment, with the stars above and their reflections shimmering below, I felt a quiet determination take root inside me. I might have been deemed too old for my son's wedding album, but I wasn't too old to claim my rightful place in my grandson's life. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to stop being the accommodating, self-effacing woman I'd trained myself to be after Robert left. Ethan, do you have your little camera with you, the one Uncle Jake gave you? He nodded, pulling the child-friendly digital camera from his pocket. I've been taking pictures all day, just like Uncle Jake showed me. Would you like to take our picture together, right here on this bridge? His face lit up. Yes, but who will take it? I looked around and spotted a young waitress taking a break near the garden entrance. Excuse me, I called. Would you mind taking a picture of my grandson and me? She smiled, approaching us. I'd be happy to. What a handsome little gentleman you are, she said to Ethan, who beamed at the compliment. I showed her how to use the simple camera, then positioned myself beside Ethan on the bridge, the reception hall glowing behind us, the night sky above. Smile, the waitress instructed. And I did. A real, genuine smile that came from somewhere deep inside. Because in that moment, I realized something important. This picture, this one simple photograph with my grandson under the stars, was the only wedding picture that truly mattered. The waitress took several shots, then handed the camera back to Ethan, who immediately wanted to see the results. Look, Grandma, we look awesome! I peered at the small screen. The image was slightly blurry, the lighting far from professional. But there we were, Ethan and I, both smiling broadly, the twinkling lights creating a magical glow around us. Perfect in our imperfection. Yes, I agreed, feeling a sense of peace settle over me for the first time that day. We absolutely do. When we returned to the reception, Michael was looking for Ethan. There you are, he said, relief evident in his voice. Mom, you shouldn't have taken him without telling anyone. We just went to see the gardens, I replied calmly. Ethan was getting restless. Before Michael could respond, Diane swept over. Michael, Vanessa's about to throw the bouquet. Ethan should be in the photos. She barely glanced at me, her attention fixed on her grandson. Come along, sweetie. Ethan clung to my hand. I want to stay with Grandma. A flash of annoyance crossed Diane's perfectly made-up face. The photographer wants pictures of you with your daddy and Vanessa. It's important. But, it's okay, Ethan, I said gently, crouching down to his level. You go with your dad and new stepmom. We'll have our adventure time again soon, I promise. He hesitated, then nodded, reluctantly taking Michael's outstretched hand. As they walked away, Ethan turned back to wave at me, the camera still clutched in his other hand. I waved back, a bittersweet smile on my face. Then I straightened my shoulders, smoothed my dress, and returned to my table where Jane waited, concern evident in her eyes. Are you okay? She asked. I took a deep breath, thinking of the photo on Ethan's camera, imperfect, unprofessional, and absolutely precious. Yes, I said with quiet certainty. I think I finally am. But as I watched the bouquet toss, saw the professional photographer documenting every moment while I sat at my distant table, felt the cool assessment in Diane's glance whenever it swept over me. I knew that being okay wasn't enough. Not anymore. It was time for things to change. Time for me to stop fading gracefully into the background. Time to claim my place not just in photos, but in my son's life and my grandson's future. The realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. And it was just the beginning. The reception continued well into the night, but I slipped away shortly after the bouquet toss. Jane offered to stay, but I insisted she enjoy herself. I needed time alone to process everything that had happened and, more importantly, what I intended to do about it. Back in my hotel room, I kicked off my heels and unzipped my dress, letting it pool at my feet before pulling on my comfortable cotton pajamas. I wiped away the makeup that had been my armor all day, revealing the face I'd earned through 63 years of living. Lines around my eyes from squinting into the sun while watching Michael's baseball games. Creases around my mouth from years of smiling, laughing, and occasionally gritting my teeth through difficult times. This was the face that had comforted my son through childhood illnesses, celebrated his triumphs, and witnessed his growth into the man he'd become. It was also the face deemed too old for wedding photos. I sat on the edge of the bed, picking up my phone and scrolling through the few pictures I'd managed to take during the day. None of them included Michael. That realization hit me like a physical blow. I had not a single photograph with my son on his wedding day. But I did have something, perhaps even more precious, the memory of Ethan's indignant assertion that I wasn't too old, that I was just right, and somewhere on his little camera was tangible proof of our moment together on the bridge. My phone buzzed with a text from Jane. Just checking on you. Robert making a fool of himself on dance floor. Karma exists. I smiled despite myself and texted back, I'm fine. Just tired. See you at breakfast. Setting the phone on the nightstand, I lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling, thinking about what came next. The wedding was over, but the issues it had exposed wouldn't disappear with the last dance or the final toast. Michael was now part of Vanessa's family, with Diane Hammond clearly staking her claim as the dominant maternal figure. Where did that leave me? Where did I want it to leave me? The easy path would be to retreat, to accept the role of distant grandmother who appeared on holidays and birthdays bearing gifts, but otherwise remained comfortably out of sight. Many women my age found themselves in similar positions, gradually edged out of their children's lives by new partners, in-laws, or simply the relentless march of time that rendered them seemingly irrelevant. But that wasn't who I wanted to be. Not for myself, and certainly not for Ethan. My thoughts were interrupted by another text message. Michael, missed you at the end of the reception. Everything okay? I stared at the message, considering my response. Should I be honest? Tell him how hurt I'd been, how excluded I'd felt? Or should I maintain the peace, assure him everything was fine, and spare him any guilt on his wedding night? In the past, I would have chosen the latter without hesitation, but something had shifted inside me. Tonight, on that bridge with Ethan, I'd glimpsed a version of myself I'd almost forgotten, a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to claim her space. I typed, "We need to talk. Not tonight, but soon. Enjoy your wedding night. I love you." Then I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Breakfast the next morning was a subdued affair. Many guests were nursing hangovers, while others had already departed for early flights. I sat with Jane, picking at my eggs and recounting my revelation from the night before. "So what's your plan?" she asked, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "I'm not entirely sure yet," I admitted, "but I know it starts with an honest conversation with Michael. Not an accusation or confrontation, but a clear statement of how yesterday made me feel and what I need going forward." Jane nodded approvingly. "That's a good start. And if he doesn't listen, then I'll need to decide what boundaries to set. For the first time in my life, I'm realizing that loving someone doesn't mean accepting whatever scraps of consideration they're willing to toss your way. I took a sip of my tea, surprised by the conviction in my own voice. I deserve better, and frankly, so does Michael. He deserves the chance to be a better son than he was yesterday. Look at you, Jane said with a smile. My sister, the late-blooming assertiveness expert. I laughed. Better late than never, right? Grandma! The excited voice cut through the murmur of conversation in the breakfast room. Ethan raced toward our table, his little camera clutched in his hand, his father following behind with an apologetic expression. Sorry, Michael said as he reached us. He insisted on finding you before we leave for the airport. I'm glad he did, I replied, opening my arms to Ethan, who climbed enthusiastically into my lap. Grandma, look! I asked Daddy to print our special picture. He thrust a glossy 4x6 photograph into my hands. There we were, on the bridge under the stars, both smiling widely. The hotel's business center printer hadn't done it justice, but it was still perfect in its own way. This is wonderful, Ethan. Thank you for thinking to print it. I hugged him close, breathing in his little boy scent of syrup and shampoo. I told Daddy it's the most important picture from the whole wedding, Ethan declared proudly. Michael shifted uncomfortably. Mom, about yesterday. Not now, I interrupted gently, nodding toward Ethan. We'll talk another time. He looked relieved, then guilty about being relieved. Right, of course. He checked his watch. Ethan, we need to go. Vanessa's waiting in the lobby, and we can't miss our flight. But I want to stay with Grandma, Ethan protested. You're going on a special trip with your dad and Vanessa, remember? I reminded him. To Disney World. You're going to have so much fun. Will you come visit when we get back home? His small face was so earnest, so hopeful. I glanced at Michael, whose expression was unreadable. We'll work something out, I promised. Maybe you can come stay with me for a weekend. Would you like that? Yes. Ethan's enthusiastic response made me smile. Then that's what we'll do. I kissed the top of his head before helping him down from my lap. Have a wonderful trip, sweetheart. Michael took Ethan's hand. Say goodbye to Grandma and Aunt Jane. Goodbye, Ethan said, waving the photograph. I'm going to put our picture in a special frame when I get home. I'd like that very much, I told him. As they walked away, Jane gave a low whistle. That boy adores you. The feeling is mutual. I watched until they disappeared from view, then turned back to my sister. And that's exactly why I need to have that conversation with Michael. Not just for me, but for Ethan too. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. 3 days after returning home to my modest but comfortable condo, I received a text from Michael asking if he could stop by. Vanessa and Ethan were visiting her parents, he explained, and he thought we should talk. I spent the morning nervously cleaning an already clean apartment and baking Michael's favorite oatmeal cookies, a peace offering, or perhaps a reminder of all the ways I'd shown my love over the years. By the time he knocked on my door at 2 o'clock, I'd rehearsed what I wanted to say a dozen times. But when I opened the door and saw my son standing there, looking somehow both grown up in his tailored casual clothes and achingly like the little boy who used to run to me with skinned knees, all my carefully prepared speeches evaporated. Hi, Mom, he said, a hesitant smile on his face. Something smells good. Oatmeal cookies, I replied, stepping back to let him in. They're still warm. He followed me to the kitchen where I'd set out coffee and a plate of cookies. We sat across from each other at my small table, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. Finally, Michael spoke. I owe you an apology. I looked up in surprise. This wasn't how I'd expected the conversation to begin. The wedding, he continued, staring down at his coffee cup. I didn't handle things well. I let Diane take over everything, and I didn't stand up for you when I should have. No, I agreed quietly. You didn't. He winced at my directness but nodded. I was trying to keep the peace. Vanessa was so stressed about everything being perfect, and her mother was contributing so much financially. I contributed $20,000, I interrupted, surprising myself with my boldness. That's not an insignificant amount, especially for someone on a fixed income. Michael had the grace to look ashamed. I know, and I'm grateful, really. It's just, Diane has very specific ideas about how things should be. And those ideas didn't include me being treated with basic respect and dignity as your mother. I took a deep breath, willing my voice to remain steady. Michael, do you know how it felt to be told I was too old to be in your wedding photos? To be seated in the third row? To watch your father, who abandoned us, by the way, be welcomed into the Hammond family while I was treated like an embarrassing obligation? He flinched. I'm sorry. I never meant. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, I said, softening my tone slightly. But you did. And what bothers me most isn't the hurt itself, but that you didn't seem to care enough to prevent it. Michael was silent for a long moment, absently breaking a cookie into crumbs without eating it. Dad called me after the rehearsal dinner, he finally said. He saw how upset you were about the photo situation. He said I was being an idiot, letting Diane steamroll over everyone like that. I couldn't hide my surprise. Robert said that? Michael nodded. He said some other things too, about how you were the one who was always there, who never missed a single important moment in my life. How he had no right to waltz back in and be treated like Father of the Year when you'd done all the real parenting. He looked up, meeting my eyes. He said I should be ashamed of myself for not making sure you were front and center at the wedding. I sat back, stunned. Robert, of all people, had stood up for me. The same man who had walked out without a backward glance 24 years ago. I didn't listen, Michael continued. I told myself he was just trying to cause trouble, that he didn't understand how complicated things were with Vanessa's family. But then, at the reception, I saw you with Ethan on that bridge. His voice grew softer. You looked so happy together, so connected. And I realized that's what real family looks like. Not the perfect pose photos Diane was so obsessed with, but those real moments of love and connection. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back. Why didn't you say something then? Because I'm a coward, he admitted bluntly. And because by then it felt too late to fix what I'd already broken. He reached across the table, hesitantly covering my hand with his. But I want to fix it now, if you'll let me. I looked at my son's hand on mine, same hand I'd held when he took his first steps, when he'd gone to his first day of school, when he'd graduated from college. The same hand that had slipped out of mine as he'd grown up and away from me. I don't need grand gestures, Michael, I said quietly. I just need to know that I matter to you. That my place in your life and in Ethan's life is secure and respected. You do matter, so much. His voice cracked slightly. When Dad left, you were everything to me. You were Mom and Dad and best friend all rolled into one. Somewhere along the way, I started taking that for granted. He squeezed my hand. I'm sorry, Mom. Really sorry. I nodded, accepting his apology, but not quite ready to let him off the hook. And, going forward, what about Diane and her specific ideas? Michael straightened his shoulders slightly. I've already had a conversation with Vanessa about that. We agreed that her mother can have opinions, but she doesn't get to make decisions about our family, and you are our family, a crucial part of it. And Vanessa was okay with that? A small smile touched his lips. More than okay, actually. She was pretty horrified when I finally told her exactly what had happened with the wedding photos. She had no idea her mother had told you it was because you were too old. He shook his head. She thought you'd chosen not to be in them for some reason. I see. I wasn't entirely sure I believed that, but I was willing to give my new daughter-in-law the benefit of the doubt. And Ethan's request to visit me? We'd like to make that a regular thing if that works for you. Maybe one weekend a month? He talks about you constantly. The knot that had been sitting in my chest for days began to loosen slightly. I'd like that very much. Michael smiled, a genuine smile that reminded me of the boy he'd once been. Good. That's really good. He hesitated, then added, There's something else I wanted to talk to you about. The professional wedding photos came in yesterday. My heart sank a little, another reminder of my exclusion. As I expected, there are no decent shots of you, he continued. You're in the background of a few reception photos, but nothing. Nothing that honors your role in my life. He pulled out his phone, tapping the screen a few times before sliding it across the table to me. So I was thinking we could do this instead. I looked down at the screen to see a professional photography website. The page was open to a family portrait package. I thought maybe we could do a real family photo shoot, Michael explained. You, me, Ethan, and Vanessa too, if you're comfortable with that. Professional photographer, proper setting, the works. He looked nervous, like a little boy again. What do you think? I stared at him, then back at the phone, emotion welling up in my throat. It wasn't an erasing of what had happened at the wedding, but it was an acknowledgement, a step toward healing. A recognition that I deserved to be seen. I think, I said carefully, that would be a wonderful way to capture our family. All of our family. Michael's face brightened. Really? You're not still too mad at me? Oh, I'm still a little mad, I admitted with a small smile. But I'm your mother. Being mad doesn't mean I stop loving you or wanting good things for our relationship. I reached for a cookie, taking a thoughtful bite. Besides, at my age, I've learned that holding grudges takes too much energy. I'd rather put that energy into moving forward. He laughed, the tension between us finally breaking. That's very wise. Well, I am very old, remember, I said dryly. Michael winced. I'm never going to live that down, am I? Not a chance. I grinned at him over my coffee cup. Consider it a lesson in respecting your elders. We talked for another hour, really talked in a way we hadn't in years. About his hopes for his marriage, my retirement plans, Ethan's upcoming first grade year, and even the complicated emotions surrounding Robert's unexpected defense of me. It wasn't a perfect conversation. We stumbled over sensitive topics, and sometimes spoke more bluntly than kindly, but it was honest, real. The kind of conversation that can only happen when both people are willing to be vulnerable. As Michael was leaving, he paused at the door. Ethan keeps that photo of you two on his bedside table, you know, the one from the bridge. A warm glow spread through my chest. Does he? Michael nodded. He says it's his favorite picture in the whole world. He met my eyes, his expression serious. I'm going to do better, Mom, I promise. After he left, I sat quietly in my living room, thinking about everything that had transpired over the past week. The hurt and disappointment of the wedding. The unexpected alliance with Robert. The tender moment on the bridge with Ethan. And now, this tentative reconciliation with Michael. Life at 63 was certainly not the serene, settled existence I'd imagined in my younger years. It was still full of challenges, heartbreaks, and difficult conversations. But also unexpected joys, small victories, and opportunities for growth. I walked to my bedroom and opened the drawer of my bedside table, pulling out the photograph Ethan had given me at breakfast after the wedding. Our imperfect, perfect moment captured in time. I found a simple silver frame in my closet, and carefully placed the photo inside before setting it on my nightstand where I could see it first thing every morning and last thing every night. It wasn't professionally lit or artfully composed. It wouldn't appear in any wedding album or glossy magazine. But this photograph held something no posed portrait ever could: the genuine connection between a grandmother and grandson, both seeing each other completely and loving what they saw. 1 month later, we gathered at a local park for the family photo shoot Michael had arranged. The weather was perfect: clear blue skies, golden autumn light filtering through the trees, a gentle breeze stirring the fallen leaves. The photographer, a kind woman in her 50s named Patricia, made everyone feel at ease, especially Ethan, who was thrilled to be the center of attention. "Now, let's get one with Grandma Caroline and Ethan," she suggested after capturing various groupings. "I hear you two have a special bond." Ethan beamed, wrapping his arms around my waist as I crouched beside him. "We're best friends," he announced. "Is that right?" Patricia smiled, adjusting her camera. "What makes your grandma so special?" Ethan thought for a moment, his small face serious. "She listens to me, and she makes the best cookies, and she's not too old for anything." Patricia caught my eye over the camera, a look of understanding passing between us. "She sounds pretty amazing," she agreed. "Okay, big smiles now." As the shutter clicked, capturing our smiles and the autumn light and the love between us, I felt a profound sense of rightness settle over me. This was my place, not pushed to the margins or hidden in the background, but right here at the heart of my family. Michael stepped up beside us, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Is there room in this picture for me?" "Always," I replied, making space for him beside us. "There's always room for family." After the session, as we walked back to our cars, Michael hung back to speak with me privately. "I got a job offer," he said, a mix of excitement and nervousness in his voice. "It's a big promotion, but it would mean relocating to Boston." "Oh," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. Boston was a 6-hour drive away. "Well, that's wonderful news. Congratulations." "The thing is," he continued, "I've been thinking a lot about family lately, about what's really important." He took a deep breath. "So I told them I'd only accept if they would also consider you for a position in their marketing department." I stopped walking, staring at him in disbelief. "What?" "You always said you regretted not finishing your marketing degree when I was young because you were too busy raising me alone. And I know your current job doesn't challenge you the way you'd like." He looked suddenly uncertain. "Was that presumptuous of me? I just thought we could all be together. You, me, Vanessa, Ethan, a real family." I was momentarily speechless, overwhelmed by the gesture. My son hadn't just listened to me, he'd heard me. Really heard my dreams, my regrets, my hopes. "Michael, I'm 63 years old," I finally said. "Do you really think they'd hire someone my age?" A slow smile spread across his face. "I specifically mentioned that when I suggested you." The VP of Human Resources said, and I quote, "Experience isn't a liability, it's an asset. We'd be lucky to have someone with her years of wisdom." Years of wisdom, not too old, but experienced. Valuable. "You don't have to decide right now," Michael added quickly. "Just think about it. The relocation package is generous, and there are some nice condos near good schools where Ethan would be attending." I nodded, my mind already racing with possibilities. A new city, a new job, a new chapter in my life when I'd thought the most exciting chapters were behind me. "I'll think about it," I promised. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset with a glass of wine. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery, scrolling to the picture Patricia had sent as a preview from our shoot that day. There we were, Michael, Ethan, and me, with Vanessa joining us in some shot smiling genuinely, our affection for each other evident in every pixel. a true family portrait. But as beautiful as those professional photos were, I found myself returning to the slightly blurry image of Ethan and me on the bridge. The photo that had started it all. The picture that had reminded me of my worth when I'd forgotten it. The image that had shown Michael what he was in danger of losing. Sometimes the most important pictures aren't the perfect ones in fancy albums, but the imperfect ones that capture perfect moments, the ones that tell the true story of who we are and what matters most. I set down my wine glass and picked up my phone again, opening my text messages. I typed a quick message to Michael. Tell your HR department I'm interested in learning more about that position. And start looking at those condos near Ethan's potential school. Your old mother might be ready for a new adventure. His response came immediately. Nothing old about you, Mom. Just experienced and wise. And Ethan is already planning which toys he wants to keep at your new place. I smiled, watching as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. 63 years old and embarking on a new career, a new city, a new chapter. It turned out I wasn't too old for wedding photos or new beginnings or standing up for myself. I wasn't too old for anything that truly mattered. And I had the picture to prove it.